good number of people joining the call now, which is good.
Okay. So we wait 1 minute till 3 p.m. +1 before starting. So, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for coming to this webinar. The topic of today is reining in inflation through data quality. I was in Procurement Leaders World Congress last week in London, where more than 1,000 people in the procurement area worldwide have gathered in London to speak about all the topics of the procurement. But especially one of the key points we're speaking about inflation and the risk of the inflation. And I have here with me two friends and very expert people and very senior and seasoned experts on the procurement area. And I would welcome Bob and Mo and asking them to introduce themselves a little bit so the audience can appreciate the conversation even better. Please, Bob.
Yeah, thank you, Adriano. So yeah, Bob Booth. I work for IBM. I'm involved in sort of large-scale procurement and finance transformations. Sort of 10 years, my career is 10 years in finance as an accountant, and then the last 25 in consulting. And I feel like data's been the consistent thing throughout, data and analytics. Yeah, sort of, you know, from building an RFID practice in 2001 and writing reports and articles and helping to build center of expertise. And it's kind of the thing that people are still struggling with, clients are still struggling with. So it's a fascinating topic, and I really think the rubber's really hit the road now around the need for inflation that's really driving a different demand and forcing people to think again about the data quality.
And more.
Hi everyone, my name's Mo Ahmed. I'm the VP of Strategic Alliances at Jagger, but been in this space for over 20 years now, having worked at various organizations like Ariba, Basware, and a few others. Had a recent stint also at Tealbook, where, and the reason I joined them was, to Bob's point, data has just been a thorn in everyone's side, and it was an area that I was really interested in. So I've learned quite a bit from that little experience. But what's key is, you know, and I was reading the CPO report just now, actually, we were just talking about it. Data is still not a priority when it comes to procurement organizations. And in this day and age, with everything else that's going on, I just find that completely mad. So this is a great topic. So I'm glad that Creatives and Adriano and Stefano invited us in to have a conversation around it, because it's something that we definitely need to change.
Yeah, and thank you, because the inflation and the kind of inflation that we are experiencing is a sort of black swan. After 3 decades or even more years with practically no inflation, where the people also that was such experienced in managing inflation situations for the procurement perspective are not even more in their place. They have been retired, etc., etc. So we have an entire people of new people that are in the procurement area that simply have no practice about inflation and what can happen in this time. So old-fashioned skills are back again, and in a certain way, some skills that has not been cultivated are again something crucial to have. But as Mo said, we all perceive that to manage in a modern way, the quality of the data is a key factor in this story. So in making possible to drive the solutions or to drive the decisions in this landscape, the quality of the data is a crucial factor. But in this case, first of all, I want to ask, how is inflation impacting procurement in practice with your clients, in the experience you have every day doing the job you are doing in supporting top clients and large international firms? Please, Bo.
Yeah, I guess we've got a really unique economic situation, right? So it's called, I think people using the word stagflation to describe it, right? So simultaneous slow growth along with high inflation and high unemployment. So really putting a sort of chokehold on the economy. And obviously that's a combination of what happened with lockdown, with COVID, and then not only geopolitical problems, not only in places like Ukraine, but also in places like Sudan. And then of course in the UK, we've laid on top of that a Brexit to make it kind of even more challenging, right? And so, I mean, just a couple of examples of some of my clients. I've got kind of hospitality clients who are facing 30% price increases on wheat. You know, we've got gum arabic from Sudan, right, is a particular challenge in terms of ingredients. So you know, 20% overall food inflation in the UK. So it's really huge inflationary challenges, and you can't necessarily pass all of those costs onto your customer, your consumer. And then I've got industrial manufacturing clients who are, you know, used to having commodity-based pricing into their end user products, but actually it's changing at an unprecedented rate and is really hard to manage, right? So it's not only the process of the negotiation, but it's also the, you know, the challenge in terms of you know, then making sure the systems are updated to reflect and their best information is correct.
And
that's an interesting one, Bob. I think that's down to data as well, right? I think that looking at goods and services from some reports from last year, there were sharp price increases, but some of them didn't have any rationale or explanation. So it's also trying to weed out what is real inflation and what has just been driven by suppliers taking advantage of a crazy global market. We had reading something recently where the price of bleach rose by 800% without any rhyme or reason, and then dropped 50% a few months later without any reason, no explanation. So it's a really weird market. And then a lot of this, back to my earlier point, is the need for data to be able to kind of manage that. Sorry, Adriano.
No, it's perfect, because this gives me the possibility to build up on that, because one of the differences, historically speaking, is that in this last 40 years, I would say, one of the big movements on the procurement area has been the corporativization. So large companies around the world, in this period of time, has corporativized the process of procurement that was local most of the time 40 years ago. And the reason of the localization was mainly related with the availability of the data. So the data at that point of time was practically impossible to be collected globally, okay? In this period of time, we have seen an incredible incrementation of the usage of corporate systems for the source-to-pay platform to ERPs that has been deployed at a global level, etc. But discovering, for example, that inside of those systems, you have silos of data indeed, and this visibility that would be required to make more productive activities related from the procurement perspective to make more competitive each opportunity to compare prices and so on so far rely specifically on the quality of the data. So the master data challenges are still there. because as we said before, all together in the same alignment, because from different point of view is the crucial point. Why still now the people in the companies has not prioritized the quality of the data as a big thing that should be considered really? Okay, so what are the challenges you see here about in which way could be really improved the quality of the master data? So I'll start from Maud right now. Okay.
I think I'm seeing this. We were talking about this actually at World Procurement Congress as well. On the one hand, I'm seeing customers really making data a priority, and in that case, it can be because they've got a really complex landscape. They haven't been able to get their arms around it, so now they've decided, right, we're going to put our arms around it. And you may have 30 ERP systems and 6 different procurement systems, and you're trying to pull that all together, trying and give you better visibility. Because to me, it is about visibility. But on the other side, you've got a lot of companies who don't know where to start. And I think that's one of the things that needs to be tackled. And it's actually, Adriano, how you and I met, right? I think you've got the one side of let's build a data lake and let's create the complexity that we need to build for the future. But that can take time, a lot of money, a lot of energy. And often data programs don't often have a great or an easy way to build a good business case to put it in front of the CFO and say, hey, I need 20 million. It's never that simple. And it's something that we battled over the last 2 years in our conversations. But I think that there are ways and means of looking at, instead of looking at everything, prioritize the data that you need, where you need clarity. So whether that's know your suppliers, know my spend, know my look at category intelligence, whatever it is that's going to help drive your business with value very, very quickly, and focus on that and try and knock down the dominoes one after another, because otherwise it becomes too big. And everybody I've spoken to has had that challenge. Where do I start? How do I do it? It sounds like it's going to be really expensive and so on, when actually that's not the case. But you need to start somewhere in order to get the visibility that you need to manage all of the challenges that we have, whether that's risk, whether that's EKSG with EKG in Germany with the Know Your Supplier piece, which is going to get bigger and broader and go everywhere else. But they're the kinds of things that I'm seeing and the reasons that I think that it needs to happen. But Bob, from an IBM standpoint, you've probably got a different lens as well.
Yeah, maybe just to double click on the question a little bit. I think you talked, Adriano, about the fact that people have put these global systems in place. People, often manufacturing companies have deployed SAP, although as we know, other systems are available. Quite often, they've also deployed as part of that SAP MDM as a mechanism for managing their data, and sometimes MDG. But actually, the data is still not any better, and the insight's not necessarily any better. So for me, if you want to understand your costs to be able to properly negotiate, you fundamentally have to understand material codes, material costs, alternative part numbers. Particularly for organization with large number of SKUs, you have to be able to understand this. But I think the biggest failing for me across all of that is, even when they put in place these systems, is a lack of understanding of the importance of governance. Yeah, the fact that data hasn't been managed, it has to be governed. I was working with a large automotive company for the person responsible for procurement transformation, and they got a legacy system, and that the material master had 84 different fields in the end. So they carved up the 84 fields and worked out who was responsible across supply chain, finance, and procurement for the most of those fields, and then made it really clear what the policy was, what the process was, and what the procedures was. And I think that fundamentally people don't understand the need to govern, and therefore the need to put the things around that. And when it goes wrong, then people haven't governed, and therefore you've got multiple master data items, multiple vendor master items, as well as material master items. You have obsolescence in stock in different locations, and lots of different costs. Yeah, so I think that's the problems that we absolutely see. But now I think what's different, and I think it kind of didn't matter for a couple of reasons. I think it didn't really matter because the impact was really on the accounts payable team. You know, if the data's rubbish, then it kind of gets washed downstream into accounts payable. And it kind of didn't matter because it, like you say, there was relatively low cost of capital and not really any inflation. But now I think it really does matter. I think those business cases to make the data will become really business critical. And I think that therefore we're going to see a tipping point in terms of successful organizations managing their data in a different way.
Yeah, and I was speaking this morning with a big manufacturing company, and the guy that is in charge for material master data creation in the bridge between the PLM and the transactional system, the SAP system they have actually in place, told me one incredible thing. So you have this situation where in the PLM engineers can do a lot of things, can invent the wheel every morning if they will, and then this information goes to the transactional system where suppose that people from procurement take care about this data. And there is an incredible discrepancy about the view of the data from the engineering perspective and the view of the data from the procurement perspective. We spoke about sometimes about this minimum viable set of data that you really need from the procurement perspective. That is not necessarily the complete data sheet that you manage in the PLM. And sometimes the information you have in the PLM is not really enough to buy the things without mistake. So there's this mismatch here that produces a lot of communication back and forth regarding the possibility to really collect the information that makes possible to use as in his maximum capability granular negotiations. Granular negotiation is the key factor we know right now. So if you want to rein the inflation, it's obvious that the granular knowledge about what you really buy is the game changer. And you can have the best infrastructure possible, SAP MDG, data lakes, or whatever you want. But if the fuel that flows in that are data is bad, you grip the engine. So is intuitable, but is not fully digested by, I would say, by some people in the organizations. I don't know if you want to build up on that more.
But it's interesting because I think that, you know, arguably you could say that the data that businesses have collected over the last 10, 15, 20 years as it relates to purchasing and manufacturing and, you know, and how those two worlds connect or not in your example, it is like a gold mine, but it needs technology to be able to make sense of it in order for that to become more valuable to you as a business. But I don't think it's only the internal data that is helpful, although that's massively helpful because it helps you benchmark against what you've been doing historically. But then you need external data to be able to benchmark how you are doing against external factors as well. Vendors is always, I mean, the Tealbook conversation comes in only because of the vendor side, and we really focused on that because a lot of the time, you know, there's a big cement manufacturer. I was speaking to their CPO about 18 months ago, and he'd said to me he was really worried. They wanted to go through a data transformation project because their sourcing teams were in many cases not changing suppliers for longer than 5-8 years for certain categories. And he had no data to be able to help refute that. So he wanted to create a data strategy that helped challenge the business by using external data sources and saying, look, there's more to the world than just what you're doing already. So again, there are use cases and there's reasons, but I think it needs internal and external factors mixed with intelligent technology to make that visibility and intelligence, you know, make it more business aware for you. And again, Bob, you'll be able to tag on to that with what you're doing with IBM.
Well, just to sort of just come back to your point on PLM, Adrian, I think the the link between, we've always thought about source to pay, but I think design to source to pay is really, really critical. And, you know, people have sort of typically done that anecdotally, extracted information out of PLM and then dropped it into a sourcing system. But I'm seeing more and more organizations link those two things together. And I guess as you're now designing products going forward in a period of hyperinflation, you really need to understand the bill of materials and then what you're going to source things for to possibly be in a position where you can get your customer price right. And I think that's the other thing that we're seeing with our clients. They're trying to connect their plan much more closely, often using AI to go from the sort of, you know, the week to the day, to really properly understand demand so that can flow properly into the supply chain as a way of trying to maintain some of these challenges on inflation. So it's interesting, that link from, definitely interesting link from design to source is increasingly automated.
This isn't a plug for Jagger at all. I've only been here for 2 months. But one of the things that I'm really encouraged by is the ability to leverage, even within technology solutions. There are a lot of best of breeds, Adriano, you know this very well, that have data sources that frankly you're not going to find, whether it's at an ERP level or a source to pay solution level. So being able to leverage this third-party data to be able to, for example, in product sourcing, pull in the information, whether that's should cost modeling, whether that's emissions data for ESG, whether that's alternate supply, but being able to pull all of that into the source to pay process so that you can make more intelligent decisions without having to do that offline and try and run data sources or find different systems that have that kind of information. That's becoming more encouraging for me because it's becoming part of the process versus it being external.
Yeah, the point is that you mentioned everything can be improved by the quality of the data. You mentioned ESG. Yeah? I want to pick this point, interesting, because I haven't a direct experience speaking about some example how improved data quality can help organization to identify cost savings, and ESG and the carbon footprint is indeed something that is relevant from the cost savings perspective today. A company has deployed a full carbon footprint calculation of the scope 3 in only 2 months, exactly because of good quality of the data. So you can imagine that if you really have a good quality of the data, meaning granular, specific categorization and identification of the product and services you buy, not the suppliers, the product and services you buy,
yes,
makes all the difference. Because here, if you do that, you can map against public information regarding the carbon footprint of each production, and then really make a precise calculation, analytical calculation about where is your carbon footprint, and then take action. And this is the only way, and as an example of the many, I would say, but in the current situation, not only from the inflation perspective, but also from other constraints that are big for the companies and represent big money. And obviously, savings opportunity, you know better than me, in an environment like a source to pay platform, the activities related with bids, etc., are really based on the quality of the data to get the
yes,
cost savings that are expected. No?
Yes,
absolutely.
for sure.
And so this come on another question from my point of view that is related with yeah, okay, technology can help to fix the problems of the data, and this enable a lot of factors. But when you have the technology in place, one of the big problems always is the adoption. And adoption is directly related with skills. So if you don't have skills, probably the adoption is low too, and you cannot get the expected value you are expecting for. And inflation is all about, we said at the beginning, about skills. So it's not only have the skills to use the system, but have the skills to use the system in a way that is innovative respect black swan that has appeared in the today environment. So, what is in your opinion, how the organizations can integrate data quality skills and management framework in their procurement functions today to face these challenges?
Maybe I'll just sort of start by summarizing what I think the kind of 3 or 4 key ingredients are for this. Yeah, so you talked a little bit about some of them. I think the first one is the right policy supported by the right culture. So fundamentally, they have to understand that the data quality is important, right? It absolutely is fundamental to everything we do, and that has to come from the top. So they've written the appropriate policy, and then they're sort of saying this is really critical, right? Almost like a Formula One team searching for insight in terms of performance. They have to be the same in terms of seeking data quality. It's first thing. I think then there's a sort of technology layer required, and it's some combination of, as I said, some sort of master data governance team, master data governance technology, MDG or something, supported by a data quality team like a tool like Synity. And then, as you say, some specific use case technology like a Creatives for material items. It's those 3 combinations, the really critical use cases. And I think that's really important. You have all 3: something to govern, something to maintain quality, and then specific AI-enabled use cases. I think when you've done that, you absolutely need an organization that can get the data clean and then keep the data clean. So I've seen some of my clients have done this by trying to embed those roles in business as usual functions. And some of my clients, probably the most successful ones, have sort of created centers of expertise and then, grown those skills for the people that are able to kind of drive and maintain data quality. And then created a really clear understanding, a clear ratio between the center, the procurement function, and then, for example, the business user, who actually has to go do the work and make those choices in practice. And that's the way you get the sort of the change management to really stick and adopt. So it's some combination of, yes, you need policy, you need an attitude, you need the tools, but then the right organization with real specialist capabilities that allow you to sort of keep that data the right quality. And then you're talking on top of that, I think, Adriano, about some very specific negotiation skills that need to be embedded in the strategic sourcing team to make sure they can buy, as well as thinking about how can I make sure people choose the lowest cost item. Yeah, so there's something that sort of says you need to train people to source better, but you also need to train people to buy appropriately to make sure you're making the right choices day to day.
That's an interesting one, because I think in a recent conversation, we did a roundtable recently, and in that we were talking about the procurement skills gap. The job spec for a category manager from 25 years ago compared to what recruiters are receiving today is largely the same. But the skills, when we've just talked about that, you've outlined that really well. The skill set that you need is actually is different. So being able to adapt the skills of the people within your organization to meet the needs of complex data analytics on the one side, but mixing that with traditional procurement capability. But in the middle there, you've got a bit of a bridge. You've got to have somebody who understands how to take advantage of that data, leverage that within the negotiation and the category management. Versus you don't need to have a category manager who's a data scientist. There's a bit in the middle, but I think procurement needs to grow, and this is what a lot of the CPOs were saying. We need to grow our team skill sets. Look at the people coming out of university, the graduates, and saying, right, well, how do we grow that? Go down to grassroots level, make sure that they have an understanding of the kind of skills that they're going to need in this changing environment. Because if you don't do that, you're going to end up have that. It's like the old procurement and AP kind of conversation. They didn't want to really talk to each other. Now you're going to have data scientists and procurement who are going to have a similar thing, unless we bridge that gap from a skills perspective So it's something that at least from what I've seen needs to become a priority. Sorry.
But this, I see this thing about the data scientists and category managers distinction as a problem. So I would say data science has to have a practice of procurement, because otherwise there is a way of saying in Italian. I want to translate it. I don't know if it makes sense in English, but numbers are like human beings. If you torture enough, they can tell you everything. So, and there could be a tendency about people that are not, I would say, familiar with the topics of the procurement. If you torture enough the numbers, can drive to conclusions that from the procurement perspective are really not good. So meaning that artificial intelligence and all the evolutions that we are witnessing right now in our landscape can make a more democratization of the process to create good data. Meaning that we can incorporate intelligence to automated process to provide data that is relevant from the procurement perspective in a way that is relevant for the negotiation, for the reactions, for the planification, etc., without the necessity of having data scientists in the way that has been designed some years ago. So some years ago, when you spoke with someone regarding data science, immediately they would say, okay, I need a guy that knows Python, that knows things like that, you know. So, but this is not the case. Today, we have this incredible changing that we are appreciating for things that cannot be applied to procurement, like ChatGPT, to mention one. Okay, that is a very trending topic today. But generative AI obviously is not something that you can apply from the sourcing perspective. Could be quite complicated, especially I'm thinking about I don't know. Frame contracts with definitions of specific item, etc. This is not today generative AI field of application, but other forms of AI are absolutely the right ones to apply in this space. So AI has a lot of declination. So when we say AI, we are referring to an incredible vast field of application. And for procurement, indeed, there is a lot of specific AI applications that are making possible what I said before. So sort of, I would say, democratization of the processes, and linking to what Bob said before is a mistake that some people has in his mind, that cleansing activities are a one-shot activities, and it's not. So cleansing and governing is the point, governing the evolution. And here the AI comes to the stage in an incredible game changer way. So because AI can really eliminate bottlenecks that in the past has been there for governing the evolution of the material and service master data, because there simply has to be a manual activity. And then in this area, artificial intelligence can provide to the end users at the very beginning of the processes a support to create good data from the very beginning. And this can change everything about the quality of the data, because all the process will be impacted by the quality of the data without the necessity to fix problems later on. And so this is a game changer also for the topic of today. So imagine a world where all the data is available immediately and you can react to expectations of rise of prices in a speedness that is incredible from the when I know that today there is a novelty somewhere, a new war, hopefully not, but a new catastrophe, whatever decision that can affect my set of prices, speed is all. So if I clearly can react immediately, I can mitigate the results of this story. And for sure, data is the enabler here. The quality of the data is the enabler. Otherwise, you cannot react. You can think about how I could react at the end of a process to collect the data, the right data, to make possible any reasoning. So, and when this happens, it's too late because you have no anymore. You lose the speed. Yeah. Please.
Definitely agree with that. I think it's been one of the biggest learnings I think that we've had over the last few years is that we need to be more agile. We need to be able to think faster on our feet. But in order to do that, you need the data to be able to do it. The faster we do that, whether that's sifting through data, making better sense of it so it's cleaner, having systems who take your data, create the granular information that you need in order to make decisions, or pumping all of that into a source to pay solution or an ERP or a SAP Analytics cloud for argument's sake, be able to kind of build those intelligence frameworks for you so that you don't have to do as much of it. I think that's very true, and it's something that we've been missing for a very long time. I mean, what you guys do with the material master data in terms of being able to pull that, have that with a multi-language, pull that into one system, pull out all of the information, funnel that back into the business so that they have better visibility of what they're spending, what the SKUs look like, what the suppliers look like. That is golden, right? I think it's been a real challenge for businesses all over the world for so long. But everybody's come up with different ideas in the meantime, right? So the ones who are being innovative have been building their own, whatever it is that they're building, their own siloed solutions for their own business, which is fine. But I don't think that allows you to be scalable. So you have that element to think about as well, and all of the IT infrastructure and the headache that you get with it. But I think we all know this, so just preaching to the converted. So
yeah, maybe if I just come back and pick up on a couple of the points that you and Mo have made, Adriano. I think you talked about, where does the category manager start and end, and where does the data scientist, how does that come together? We talked an awful lot about data quality, and we also talked about AI. I kind of see this in 3 layers. So the first one is a data quality layer. So you're really properly governing your data in such a way that it's clean, it's timely, it's up to date and well managed, well governed. I think then, and we've not talked about this a lot, you then need the right analytics layer that sits on top of that, where you have one consistent view of the world. You have the procurement of work with data science, and ideally using out of the box packages plus have built something so everyone has the same view. You're not got, a client recently where they only trusted Excel and everyone downloaded Excel, and guess what? Everyone's Excel was different, right? So a really clear, and I think that's where strategically the data scientists need to work with the procurement leaders to understand what's really critical, and then demarking the ETL activities from the presentation activities, from the technology activities and integration, and then the business should work with the data scientist to think about insight. Okay, so what does it mean? What can I do? What shall I do? That's the second layer. And I think the third layer then is the AI layer. And I think it's really important to identify what are the really critical business use cases. There are only normally 5, right? I call these the moments that matter, right? So understanding my commodity pricing for the next 3 months, understanding commodity risk, understanding supply demand. There were 4 or 5 or 6 things, and that's where you should absolutely focus your effort around AI, and try and then take those things to scale. What Mo talked about this a little bit. What's changed in the last 5 years? You've now got best of everything. Every single use case that's needed, there's a brilliant piece of AI that's applicable. But by understanding what are the 5 business critical moments that matter, the business value driven moments, enabling those through AI, and absolutely that could be informing and improving your master data quality, like with the creative solutions. And I share Mo's view of just how amazing it is. Then you're really clear about going after those things and making sure they scale into your enterprise systems and your whole organization adopts them. There's a danger of, if you go after too many things and too many use cases, that you're not going to be really successful. And over time that will evolve, but you really allowed you to be focused around those three layers.
No, I agree with you. This is a very beautiful conceptualization. And about use cases, I want to mention one specific use case that today, with the rise of the interest rate, is urgent. So meaning that, for example, if we speak about duplicates items, we are speaking really about the excess of inventory. And I remember very clearly some years ago speaking about this topic, when you have a simulation of the ROI regarding the optimization of the working capital, speaking with a CFO, say, okay, well, for me, with this negative interest of rates, well, the cost of the capital is marginal. I can do with that. I can deal with that. So money is in cash, money is in inventory. Yeah, is affecting liquidity, but we don't have this problem. Okay, thank you. Bye. Right now, it's not anymore the case. So right now, when you have to pay 6-7% on the money you lend from banks, it's absolutely no more the case. The point of the working capital frozen in the inventories, because the inconsistency of the data, back to the topic, is a problem. Is something that you can measure in terms of benefits very quickly. So do you have the same kind of experience with your clients and with the people that you are knowing?
Yeah, I mean, certainly I completely agree with your analysis of the situation. We've had almost 20 years of incredibly low interest rates, no inflation, relatively long life in terms of lack of obsolescence of the products, although there are still developments in some industries, and that combined with a pressure to always have the product, right? There's kind of Amazon-led consumer demand. You expect it to always be in stock. It's really led to really high levels of inventory for sure. And I guess there are two really strong, and I've absolutely seen that situation with my clients. One of my industrial manufacturing clients were carrying really high levels of inventory, not just for the reasons we talked about, but some other manufacturing reasons. But it's really critical we understand where items are. Yeah, not only because we want to reduce the cost of capital and reduce the interest calculation, but of course if I can supply the one I already have in stock somewhere with a relatively limited transportation cost, it also costs less than the next one I'm going to buy, so drives increasing profit. The first time I saw this was when I was working in a company a couple of jobs ago, when we were doing some procurement outsourcing, and we had some people in Texas, and people just rang around and found the closest one and shipped it, right? So that was the sort of early 2000s equivalent. But absolutely understanding that either spare parts or inventory parts are equivalent, making sure you can then provide them to the customer and get those items as effectively as possible to customers is really important. I think, and we're seeing our clients really pushing for that. Layer on top of that, of course, is then also, and where are they? Can I make sure I can then transport them at the lowest cost and lowest carbon? I guess interestingly, over the weekend, Amazon have just released some material saying they're now in their North American business using AI to understand where the demand's going to be, so the item can be the closest to the customer to minimize the delivery time and also minimize the carbon cost. So certainly big organizations are using AI in some of these use cases for sure.
My friends at Everstream Analytics are doing something similar as well on the logistics side. So being able to provide that kind of information as part of your decision making as you go out to choose the right logistics provider, make sure that you're managing that risk, knowing where the challenges are in, whether that's air, sea, or freight. That's becoming such a big thing as well now. But trying to wrap that into your sourcing process so that you can see that along, as well as the operational supply chain process as well, is again becoming very key. So that's a separate webinar. That one could be an interesting topic.
Oh, we can discuss for a very long time about this topic because relevant. One last thing regarding question that has arisen for the audience regarding the time constraints in gathering accurate and complete data. So here I want to elaborate a little bit because obviously urgency is one topic, and here comes stage artificial intelligence. So meaning that artificial intelligence can dramatically reduce the time frame that is needed to have in place a system that make possible to achieve the results we are expecting. So in the past, I have heard a lot of experience regarding implementation of artificial intelligence as a painful exercise where people from the client side has been involved in extensive activities to train the system and making possible that the system understand the client data. So this is not anymore like that. Okay, so we are speaking about supervised training of the artificial intelligence, yes, but with innovative ways of do it in the sense that we can reduce dramatically the time that is needed, the contribution on the client side of the collection for the collection of the knowledge necessary to interpret the data correctly. Why is so crucial this thing? Because it's connected with something that we have already discussed about the granularity. Granularity means high quality, otherwise you cannot have granularity, meaning that artificial intelligence has to reduce at maximum the false positive in when you search something, when you identify a duplicate, when you try to create a new item, etc., etc. Everything that is related with the granularity means quality and means definitively accurate the development of the artificial intelligence. This thanks that God is a part of the story that has been dramatically accelerated. I don't know if you have other thoughts on that, or we can open for the audience to have questions because we have many people on the audience. Maybe there's someone that are curious about something.
I'm going to just give you a quick answer while the audience reflects. I think that you know, when you're implementing enterprise system, it takes months and years, right? Tools like SAP take years. When you're doing data quality improvements with systems like Synity, it's something you could do in weeks and months, and that's, you know, typically more applicable to tools like things like vendor master items. But when you start to apply AI, it's something you can do in days or weeks. Yeah, so it's the speed at which you can apply AI, particularly where those AI have been pre-trained in the pre-existing models. You know, you use a system like Reactives, and I don't want to kind of big it up too much, right? We're being independent, but it's good to give our view because you've spent, you know, 10 plus years understanding material items, understanding equivalent part codes, and building some rules. Those rules are then applicable to your business, and it's really about sort of tuning those rules. That's the first thing. I think the second thing is you don't have to do everything at once. Yeah, so you can build an agile a backlog of targets and go through the most relevant items and then continue to improve them over time. So it's something that really can go, in my experience, really quick. And then you identify problems and then continue to solve it. Yeah.
Just a quick one on that, Bob, just because this is an observation from pilots that we've run when I was at Tealbook and others. Often organizations think that it's going to be a silver bullet and that you're going to put your data in and the AI is going to run and magically everything's going to be right and it's going to be right first time. The point of any data program is that look at the positives and don't look at the negatives. So if the first pass you only get a 15% incremental change, take that as a positive and then let it run again, because it's good for the audience to know, because I think a lot of people, it's understanding how that works and being pragmatic about what the results are going to be, but then taking the results and making something, doing something with the results that allows you to show the benefit, and then going through it iteratively, because that's what this is about. Data programs are iterative until the machines and the AI actually really gets up to speed and then becomes a more autonomous thing. I just wanted to make that point because I've just seen it one too many times where they're screaming at you because, hey, it wasn't 80% right on the first pass.
Yeah, data's for life, not just for Christmas, Mo. That's the thing.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. But I want to point out one thing regarding the time, because the concept of time and the sequence, when you try to implement something, as you said before, Mo, achieve some results can make possible that the consensus in the organization about the implementation of new processes, etc., could be relevant, and all the people can make a contribution about adoptions and things like that. So getting results, measurable results, are a crucial element to achieve that. I want to point out one aspect of the results that is often not so clearly, I would say, measured, and is the efficiency of the process in terms of end-to-end. Okay, so from the moment you design, to the moment you source. Okay, and the efficiency of that process has never been monetized. So the people tend to say, okay, I have the people. I do not need or I cannot consider a real saving, because even if my process is faster or more effective, the people are still there. So there is no measurable outcomes of this efficiency. And this approach, in my opinion, is quite bad. I would say clearly bad, because companies must work also in the medium long term. And in the medium long term, if you have efficient processes, for sure you will in a certain moment redefine your processes or redefine the organization that is handled those processes, because you clearly see that the inefficiencies are not anymore there, and then the workload of the people is less than there was before the implementation of the solution. So from the management point of view, the measurement, the KPIs regarding category managers and so on and so forth are relevant. And again, the quality of the data is again a key factor here, also to measure these kind of things. So you cannot only measure about millions of euros or dollars transacted by a category manager or by events, but for example by quantity of frame contracts that has put in place, how much those frame contracts has really adopted, how much is the discrepancy between materials that you have bought using the frame contract and how much you have bought outside the frame contract, the reduction of the free text orders, because you can find better the master data you are looking for, instead to invent every morning something as a free text order because you don't find what you are looking for. So these aspects are all related with quality of data and can be measured today and can support the redefinition of the processes in the medium long term. And for sure today we cannot avoid to think about that, because the organizations are all focused on streamline and streamline the organization itself in terms of people that are more and more costly, because you are asking for more senior skills because the data is good, and then you have more costly people, and then you have to get the most from those people instead to make a lot of manual work to fix problem in the old-fashioned way.
Looks like we've got a couple of questions, Adriano, but that was taken. But I think
please take the
first.
So the first one, what is the stakeholders want to see the value? What was your most successful answer? This is the first question. What if the stakeholders want to see the value? Okay. Oh, well, stakeholders always the values. There are no question on that. But the value is there. Is what about you measure? Okay. And the measurement is a key. And the measurement is relevant only if what you measure is supported by good data. So the most questionable approach is always when you show to a very C-level people, the CEO, the CFO, a table, and then suddenly someone said this number is not good. And for some reason, they discover this on the fly and you don't know why. But they don't know, they really know because they have a clear vision about the consistency of the data, okay? And the consistency of the data sometimes tells you more about if the data is trustable, yes or no. And the stakeholders are exactly those people, where if a number has to be break down, understand what is deep there, and demonstrate the value is there, you need the data to support this kind of breakdown. And I always see so that if you have the possibility to demonstrate that each of the numbers you are looking for are the right ones, this is the best way to demonstrate the value. Cost of poor data. After a master data cleansing, the effect on contract of procurement order and much later on the quality of the invoicing may take 3 to 6 months. How do you create happy moments on intermediate achievement to keep spirits high and leadership interested and proud of their decision to go after data quality? Very good question indeed. I don't know if we have partially answered, but maybe Bob and Mo can elaborate a little bit on that.
Well, given the time, I'll try and do a kind of 1 minute answer to value and this journey, right? So I think the first thing is, as you described, you build a value tree that's got efficiency and effectiveness, risk and insight. So each of those should have a series of measures behind them, and you're clear where you are, you're clear where you get to, and you have a calculation around how much value is delivered by each of those things, right? So, but I think the art is build as yourself a series of targets, right? I'm going to improve my material data quality by 10%. And have a way of articulating it and be clear about that, and then don't try and set yourself a long term. Try and do 6-week or 12-week sprints and be really clear about the outcome, and then really start to share and build advocacy. Because actually, probably the most important person in this piece is someone who knows the business, who can tell you what the real equivalent barcodes are. By involving the expert engineers or expert buyers or whatever it might be from the business, who can be engaged in it, and then using them as advocates, but building yourself a short-term plan with a series of sprints with some really clear deadlines. I think it's how you build advocacy, you articulate value, and you evidence success.
We've had a couple of different cases. I think that the short-term sprints in data programs are really important, but I think a couple of the questions have been, how do we almost convince the stakeholders in the first place to give us, you're almost giving them a little bit of rope, right? So, but if somebody's going to give you a little bit of rope, you've got to give them something back for it. So how do we make that happen without getting the investment that we need to do the whole program? And in those cases, you've got a lot of the source to pay vendors, a lot of the data, best of breed. It depends where you're going to start, whether it's vendor master, whether it's category intelligence, whether it's material master, whether it's there's various areas. But go small, pick something important, get a result as part of a POC, or there are a lot of these companies that will do this, right? Just to demonstrate the value, even this much, to go, well, just to give you an idea, this line of 100 line items, if I had gone out to find that information myself, or if X person had gone out to find that themselves, it would have taken them 2 months. You've got to make it tangible, and you've got to work with a vendor that's helping you on that data strategy to kind of help you build that case and provide and showcase that value. I've seen Adriano and the team do that. I did it at Tilbook. I know others do it, but it will help you build that confidence to then build it. But back to the earlier point, where is your priority? Where do you need to focus first? And then go within that and go, what's more important within that, right? Choose that, create a little case out of it, work with the vendors to make it happen, and then we go.
Yes, and by the way, you know, Pareto is always right. So so 80% represent
Yes.
probably 80% of the value is represented by 20% of the data. So there is a way to prioritize the processes, obviously making possible to achieve early birds and maintain the support of the senior management on any kind of initiatives related with these processes. So we're running out of time. I want to thank you, Mo, you, Bob, for this webinar. Thank you for the audience to be here. I hope that has been an interesting conversation for all of you. Thank you and see you soon. Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Closed?
Stefano, ancora viva la conversazione? We can remain here. I suppose that is closed. Stefano, are you here?